In this episode, we are going to be introducing some up-and-coming comic creators. They are responsible for this gem, the Pedestrian. It is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't picked this up yet, go to your local comic shop right now and pick it up. Joey Esposito, Sean Gorman.
Finish watching the video first.
Watch this interview, and then you'll see why you should pick it up.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're going to want to pick up Sean and Joey's other stuff, too. So this is probably one of our favorite interviews so far.
Yeah.
The first time we're interviewing both the writer and the artist at the same time. So this was a good one for us.
Yep.
Enjoy this and enjoy the clips that we show throughout it, too. Thanks. Today we are joined by Joey Esposito and Sean Gorman, who are currently producing the wonderful The Pedestrian. If you haven't read it, go to your local comic shop and demand that they have it. Or you can find it online at Magma has it, and you guys have it, right?
MagmaComics.com for sure has it. Yeah.
I've got a few copies left of our event variants, which are the first one is a sketch cover that I do have a couple copies on my web page that I've been doing sketches on, and we've also still have copies of our event variant for number 2, which is a glorious action figure variant based on
so that
big toy commercial.
I have notes behind me, and one of my notes says ask about action figure cover, because I looked at them. So I love action figure covers. I think it's a great idea for comics. Is there any chance you're going to do a Pedestrian action figure?
Well, we do have a prototype made. That we made during the pandemic.
Oh, nice!
And I don't know if you saw what we have. We have a glorious action fake toy commercial, which I think we have a clip. Let's roll the clip.
The evil clutch are taking over. We need the help of Summer City's silent sentinel, the Pedestrian.
Step right up. Talk to the hand. You're losing your grip, clutch scum.
In the Pedestrian, justice always has the right way. The Pedestrian comes with everything you see here, toys not included. On sale now from Magma.
And we're back. That was a great clip.
Also, one of the easiest interviews we've ever done.
We may not need to talk in this interview.
He's a pro.
So let's stick with the Pedestrian for now. Where does the idea come from? Where do you come up with the Pedestrian?
I was futzing around, and I had gotten this idea of a fella sort of like the Flash, but does not run fast.
Right.
He's suited and booted, sort of inspired by the blinking, flashing white guy in the traffic signs. And I had come up with this general concept, like he doesn't run after bad guys. He walks at his own pace, briskly, to danger and to help people, with the name, calling him the Pedestrian. And that, and a tagline of justice always has the right of way. And I didn't have much more than that, but had remembered working with Joey years ago on a book called Pawn Shop. That was a slice of life story that took place in New York. It's a day in the life of New York City in 4 parts, and each part is the perspective of a different person living in the city. And remembered how great Joey was at writing really rich characters, and thought it'd be really cool to do something similar to that format on a larger scale. And that's when I tapped Joey and showed him what I had been working on to see if he wanted to work with me on it.
You know, it's funny. I was at the around the same time number 1 came out. Our local comic store, people were talking about the Pedestrian coming out before it even came out. And the people working there and a couple of the customers. And then I was at another store called The Geekery in Matawan, New Jersey. Become kind of friendly with the owner. And I went to a book club they have there. And people were talking about it there. And I was like, oh, weird. Like, this is, everyone's talking about this, it seems like, in this little sort of circle now. And it just generated buzz in a way that I haven't seen a comic kind of generate this sort of local buzz so quickly, you know?
That's awesome to hear. Retailers have been super supportive. The Geekery
Mhm.
in particular they've been really great. And Bruce, I should shout out at the Geekery.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Mhm.
So you came up with the concept during quarantine, correct?
Absolutely. This was a pandemic project, and it's something we worked on in secret for about a year.
Mhm.
We didn't show anyone. Just complete creative vacuum of just no ego. Me and Joey just crafting this world, and we started off as like a series of shorts. We figured we take inspiration from the old Marvel covers of like Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and take those chapters and present that as a full issue that we can break up and work on our time. And eventually we had the sixth issue pitch and started putting that together. And then also, once we started showing people, we put together like a small ash can of that first 6 pages, a little a cover, the cover gallery we've been putting together, and we've been selling that at shows for 3 or 4 years of just something on the table. We've given it to all of the retailers that we're friendly with, especially Doug. Doug had gotten a copy of that and had been. So when we finally came to the point where we had a publisher lined up, we had all these stores already aware of the product, and we're excited to. I've been waiting years, literally, to be a part of it.
Mm. You mentioned Doug. That's Doug at the Geekery.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Geekery. Doug's a huge champion of this book. Also, Nick at GHU. As you mentioned, I signed there not too long ago. And also a few other local shops like Action City Comics, Forbidden Planet, also big supporters. And it's been really amazing to see not only like people talking about it, people being excited about it, but also selling. Like we're going to these stores and they're selling out of copies. For Forbidden Planet, I signed a stack of 50 on the day of release, and by the time number 2 came out, they had like 2 copies left.
Wow,
That's great.
Huge.
This is, I also want to say, like, this is like unprecedented for us. We've both been doing this for a little while, small like indie books here and there, and this has been such an incredible response, like nothing I've.
That's not a small indie book.
Well, even Batman. That's like there's so much Batman like that. It's hard to stand out and show your voice in that way. And I love doing that stuff, but in terms of having your own creation, like for example, we were at Baltimore Comic Con last weekend, and it was the first show I've ever had where people already kind of knew the book and were like coming over to us, and it wasn't as so much of like, hey, can we show you our book and please buy it? I mean, there was that also, but like it's offset by people who were already familiar with it, whether they'd read it or had just seen it online or something. And that's an incredible feeling.
We were walking around shooting some content of like us, being stupid, walking around with the giant cardboard standee of the character, and a couple of youths at the show were like, "Oh, hey, the Pedestrian, we love that guy," and we're like, "What?" We're like, where are those guys? And they're like, "What?" Like, we're the creators. Like, they must have thought we were like their street team or something. I'm like, "Oh yeah, we'll let them know." We got pictures, and it was like,
that's great.
It's really it's overwhelming a little bit to see the really strong response to this thing that we were hoping maybe. We really dug it. We thought this was really good, and we're like, okay, let's see what people think about this. And now we're getting these like real time big reactions of people not only knowing the book and discovering it, but also people who had slept on it, who had no idea what this was, and finding it on shelves and like losing their minds of some of the reviews we're getting. People are just so excited they can't actually get the words out to talk about the book, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, how rare, right, in comics these days for something to take off so quickly right out of the gate from a creator-owned property is, you don't see it much these days, unfortunately. Every once in a while something hits, but this has really been taken off. It's great.
This is special. I think part of it is it's not really a superhero comic book. You're really discussing a community. So we're looking at all the different people in that community and how it impacts them, and how the pedestrian is kind of helping, but kind of just he's there, kind of. I love it. I think it's
he's the
fantastic.
connective tissue that I think
Yeah.
is starting to help bring this damaged community back together, even if it's only starting with 4 or 5 people. That's a start, you
Yeah.
know, and I think that's what this book is really about. And I think part of our struggle getting to publication was that you're right. It's like, it's not really a superhero book, but it's also not really a sci-fi book, or it doesn't, I don't think it's categorized easily. And I don't say that as like, you know, with pretension or anything. It's just like, it really is kind of a weird blend of everything that we love. And I think that made it difficult. You know, a lot of the publishers we talked to early on were like, we love this, but we don't know how to market it or position it in the market. And luckily Magma came around and are interested in doing the weird stuff, and it worked out. But I hope that's what people are connecting with, that it's just not so easily, you know, siloed into a particular genre or category.
Well, yeah, that's great because it makes it something unique that we unfortunately don't see enough of in the market anymore.
We do not.
You know, there was a time, you know, in the 80s, where we got some like truly amazing concepts that had never been seen before in the art form. And then those concepts got eaten up by the industries. And then for a while there was kind of not much, you know,
the early 90s
that separated it out from the crowd, you know. Hopefully, you know, this shows that people are still hungry for that kind of like, oh, this is just so odd. I need to, you know, it just catches with people, you know.
Thank you. Yeah,
you know,
I hope so.
You know, bring it back to things like, you know, the Ninja Turtles, whatever. When they first started, it was something so bizarre that people were just drawn to it immediately, you know.
And it happened because of people talking about it. And that's what seemed like it. For me, it gets sold to me by Nick at JHU Comic Books because I'm a huge Flash fan. So Flash is my big guy. So he was like, listen, this is basically the opposite of the Flash. But look at the cover. It looks just like that Flash cover that you love. So, you know, you got to buy it. So I bought it, read it, and I'm hooked.
When he's in the power,
it's
the power walking pose.
Just like that. That Francis Manapul cover of the Flash, like that.
Yeah.
He's not the Flash, he's the Brisk.
He's a Brisk. So how is the relationship with Magma Comics? How did that come about? You pitched this to them, and they were.
So it's a roundabout story because we pitched this to literally every publisher looking at pitches. We either had connections. I think we probably shared it with IDW first because we had some friends in an editorial over there. They gave it, you know, this went right through editorial, which we had never even gotten that far, where we got an email back and we had a couple of meetings. We're like, oh, this is something where they're taking this seriously. Eventually they passed, and we either had contacts or did the legwork to get contacts at every single publisher that looks at pitches. So anyone active 3 years ago looked at this. We had a couple of offers that weren't great that we passed on. We had another publisher lined up that, you know, the deal wasn't great, but they were offering things that we needed. Thankfully, that deal fell through and dodged a bullet. And we had gotten to the point where we were talking at C2E2, and we were just kind of just decided that the publisher that we needed didn't exist yet, because there's always new publishers popping up all the time. It was probably just a waiting game. And then later that year, at New York Comic Con, Bobby at Magma came up to my table in Artist Alley and said, hey, we're doing this thing with Magma Comics, and if you have any pitches, we'd love to see them. Because he had remembered the Pedestrian back when he was at IDW. And I said, well, we actually still have Pedestrian. He goes, oh, well, yeah, I really like that. Says, please send that to us. And they gave that a look, and they were beyond transparent of what sort of their process was. Like, they would check in every couple of months, which doesn't happen a lot of times. You send something to a publisher, you either hear from them 6 months to a year later or never again.
Right.
Like, they block you. And yeah, a couple of months went through, and we had a meeting, and we chatted about it. And I think we were left with the question of, we love this book. It is a weird book. We just kind of need to figure out how we market and position this. And then we, thought about that and realized we were getting that question a lot. So we had put together a proposal, and we had reached out to a friend in marketing and picked their brain for an hour of their time that we paid them for, and through sort of what we had, and we got a couple of good points from them, and we put together a rudimentary, like, one-page proposal. Like, here's what we have. We have an animated trailer. I think we have a clip. Let's roll a clip. We had a line of comic shops already ready to pick this up. We had an original score that we used, that you just heard in the anime trailer that we just played.
Yeah.
And so we came at them with all these assets, and we're so ahead of the game than most people have. Don't have when they're coming into a cold comic book pitch. Like, we were of the mindset of, like, we're not waiting for anyone. We're going to make this one way or the other, and the publisher can kind of get on board, or they can get out of the way with respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's easy to, obviously you're focused so much on making the best book that you can, but there is just so much more than that. And especially with a passion project like this, I think we just decided not to leave it up to chance for this one, and just go full bore as much as we could and make the assets, but also, like, just do the legwork of making it easier for someone to say yes. Oh, we don't know how to sell this. Like, okay, well, we thought about this already. Here's some ideas. And of course, they're the experts and professionals, so they can take, sort of our baseline marketing plan or whatever and make it something actionable. But I think really thinking about the business side of it is very important.
Yeah.
And a book, any book that you read, there's so much, whether you love it or hate it, so much work and energy has gone into not only making the book, but just getting it on the shelves from everyone involved. So I think, like, trying to find a way to lessen that burden for the rest of the team, and also just show that you're, like, considering the business and the industry itself, I think helped us. in some ways, and also having a great cover gallery already put together, I'm convinced was really helpful.
It was helpful not having a time restraint of being able to approach people that we love, not having any deadline of saying to Mike Allred or Dean Haspiel or Brian Level, like, we love your stuff. Let's send you what we have. We want to see what happens when you look at this and what goes on in your brain after doing this. So we gave very few notes to anyone that we would approach. We would just say, hey, we need a cover, we need an iconic cover of showing what you dig about this project. And no one who worked on this hated the book. So we'd send it to them, like, is this something you dig? Would you be interested in part of this? And it was an astounding yes from everybody that we'd approached.
Yeah,
I got to ask you, did you see my show notes before? Because on the show notes, again, the other thing on there is Mike Allred's #1 cover. we love Mike was on our show about 2 months ago. He's one of the nicest guys we've ever met. He's absolutely wonderful. And that cover really, his art really stands out. Anytime you see it, you know it's him.
Yeah.
And the cover looks fantastic. And that's the 2 covers I have noted to pick up is the Mike Allred cover and the action figure cover.
Yeah, Mike is one of my favorite artists. Madman is the book that made me want to do comics. I was stuck on a 24-hour Amtrak from New York to Orlando because we thought that would be a fun thing to do. as me and my previous wife and our 1.5-year-old were like, oh, we'll just take the Amtrak to Disney. This will be so much fun. Oh. And it was fun for like the first 3.5 hours. And that got old quick. And so I'm kind of stuck on this train. I think I just downloaded the Comixology app. Like, oh, let's check this out. And I think they had Madman #1 as a free title. I was like, oh, let's check this out. And I'd been drawing for a long time, and I hadn't made the decision to go full into comics at that point. But something about that first issue, like mostly black and white, a little blue tones on there, and just Mike's art really unlocked something in my head of like, oh, I can do this. This makes sense to me. This is something that is cool, that I think I could do something along this level. And I met Mike years later after doing my first book about Harry Houdini. That was sort of like an action adventure thing based on the real life of Harry Houdini, called Secret Adventures of Houdini. And my party trick at the time was I would do straitjacket escapes at comic conventions. I would go to shops with like a straitjacket. I'd have someone put me in it. And my thing I would do at conventions would be I'd go find someone I admire, be like, hey, Mike Allred, I love you. Here's a copy of my book. This is what I'm doing. Would you like to put me in a straitjacket? The answer was yes. This was at a New York special edition a couple years back. I think one of his few East Coast appearances, maybe I want to say like 10 years ago.
I remember that was a great convention.
That was a great show, and I miss it so much. They really should do that. It's just the Ars Dali of New York comics.
It was a great show.
Not the nonsense. So him and Laura put me in a straitjacket the next morning, and we had some fun. Years later, I knew once I would need a project special enough to approach Mike Allred for this cover. And when we started working on the Pedestrian, it's like, oh, Mike for sure. So I think we asked Dean Haspiel first because we're friendly. We're both in Brooklyn, and this is during the pandemic. Everyone's in a weird headspace. Dean had just had a birthday, so he's in a weird headspace about his birthday and just getting really existential. So we would have these really long conversations about the project and like what he could do with the book. And eventually his cover was inspired by a street sign he had in his house that his brother stole when they were younger, and his brother had passed a number of years ago. So this was like a fun thing he could do as sort of like a tribute to his brother, which I thought was a really sweet thing to incorporate into this work. And he'd said, like, who else are you thinking for covers? And I was like, Allred, for sure. And they had worked together years ago on the Fox, and he had his email. I was like, well, I got his email. So I'm emailing Allred, Dear Mr. Allred, you may not remember me, but a couple of years ago, you put me in a straitjacket. He responds, of course I remember you. I've never put anyone else in a straitjacket. And then, we sent him the stuff. So something clicked immediately, and he had that image in his head right away. So we had that. He was done with that in like a week.
Oh, that's great.
Do you have that cover too? Can I get that cover from you also?
I might still have. I also have the original art.
Yeah, you see that
on my wall here.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've got most of the original covers. The only one I don't have is Dean's, and that's the only other one that physically exists. And I just got this terrific Tom King sketch at Baltimore Comic Con.
That's great.
Wow.
We think this is his best work yet.
Very cool.
The thing I didn't understand about Tom King's work, of his art, is that you see like his sketches, like, oh, this is hilarious. He's just doing this for fun. He works so hard on those. Like, he's really leaning over. He's really taking his time with it. It's like maybe like a 15-minute thing. Like, he's not just defacing your comic and throwing it back at you. Like, oh, here you go. No. He's really doing his best. On those things. And I think that's something that should be commended, because he's usually sitting next to Mitch, who's this incredible artist. And so he's probably just digging the hell out of what he's doing, maybe giving him notes along the way. But yeah, Tom's a great guy.
Yeah, we always like to shout out Mike Allred, because he's been ridiculously kind to us.
Oh,
I mean, just so
we get
nice.
so surprised when creators say yes to us, and now we're at a point with Mike. Like, we had a question for him, and I emailed him, like, Mike, I really have a question about this one card you worked on in 1991 for this card set that no one knows about. Do you remember? And he's like, oh yeah, he wrote like a 2-paragraph response. Like, yeah, and I wrote. It's like, thank you.
That's amazing, because usually, as you know, like, you email Mike Allred, you get like a 1-word response. Usually, it's like, or dig.
No, that's just, when we did the interview, that's what it was. But now this one, he literally responded with, it's about, we're working on a video for this. It's an early 1990s card set that
the Fredonia Funny Work.
No one knows
10th
about
anniversary card set.
And Mike had a card in it.
And the list of creators who contributed to this 11 card set for this comic book store in Orange, California is ridiculous. It's Frank Miller, Mike Allred, Dave Stevens.
Wow.
It's like a gallery of all the greats from the early 90s.
That's very cool.
One card set, and they're so hard to find.
Mike Mignola.
One of the before Hellboy came out, it's a drawing of Hellboy.
Very cool.
Yeah, the card set's amazing, and so few people know about it. And
Mike was great.
We've been struggling to find information on it, and Mike really helped us, connect some dots.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really nice of him. You were talking about
the best email he ever got, because I've gotten 2 covers from him, and I ordered, and I bought the art for both of them. When I was getting the second one for a book called Ghost Planet, FedEx was being FedEx and marked it as delivered before I'd gotten it. So I was like, oh no, this is going to be a pain in the neck now. So I emailed Mike, just be, hey, heads up, it's marked as delivered, but it's just not here. I'm having my landlord check the cameras, just giving you a heads up that I'm looking into this, but I don't have it yet. He sends back the longest email, maybe longer than the one he sent you. This was a book about his struggles, because I know a lot of people know he had a home invasion a number of years ago. So he really beefed up his security, cameras, the whole shebang. But now his peeve is porch pirates, who his porch isn't like rigged.
Yeah.
I'll come up and steal his like Amazon boxes. So he describes like a Wile E. Coyote style trap system that would be like a trap door that would be electrified to do real serious harm to people coming onto his porch and taking his boxes. That's amazing. Something came out of him in that email. And then the next day the package shows up, like, oh, hey, Mike, I'm so sorry, false alarm, I got it. Right back, groovy.
And now you're pitching out as a comic book about porch pirates and how you hunt them down. You and Mike already working on that. You're revealing.
No, like Mike already is someone who is living in a different world and existence than we are, and is being he's like a David Bowie level type of creature existing in our world that's intertwined with our reality, and his lovely wife and his beautiful family, where he's making the art he wants to make. And in his spare time, he's slowly converting his house into a scale replica of the 1966 Batcave, and then all these Star Wars projects.
I know, that's the Star Wars one got us.
Oh my God, these giant droids he's been building, incredible. Like he's having to he's living around this museum he's building in his house.
Yeah.
But his wife is like on the same page. Like, yeah, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, we interviewed him, and behind him it looks like the Death Star. We're like, where are you? And he's like, oh, this is my office. And
See, Sean, you mentioned that Mad Men was what got you into comics. Joey, what got you into comics?
I've never had a time without comics. So growing up, my parents both read comics and always bought comics wherever they went. If they went to the drugstore, they would just bring some home, whatever it was. But my mom always tells this story about she grew up, in the 50s and would read all the Superman family books, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and Lois and all that stuff. And then when she moved out, my grandfather just chucked them all because,
Sure.
back then that's what they were, they were disposable. And she was still harboring a lot of regret and resentment over that. But as a result, they've always been very supportive of things I collect or hobbies that I'm interested in. And so comics were always around. The first comic I remember buying or picking out off of the rack and buying was Adventures of Superman 450, I think, which was like an invasion. It's like him going into exile on the cover, basically, and it's like the Daily Planet's in ruins, and he's like flying away, which is very compelling. And then not long after that was the Death of Superman era, and that was Sean and I talk a lot about the Triangle era of Superman, and that was kind of like, for me at least, really when I first started really digging in, and rather than just an issue here and there, or just like a cool cover that I liked that I found at the flea market, Death of Superman was like, oh, parents, you need to take me to the comic book shop and I need to acquire this, and this. And then it just sort of grew from there. And, as I got older, Vertigo was going strong, and just sort of learned, started with superheroes, and then it sort of blossomed from there. And then I would say in college, really discovering things like Chris Ware and Terry Moore and those sort of creators. That's really like artists who are telling their own weird stories in their own weird ways. Really kind of opened my eyes as to what else could be done with comics, and that's kind of when I decided that was the path I was going to take, for better or for worse.
That's something I always talk about, that there's a sort of golden age that ran concurrently with the sort of the image boom, where Vertigo was just putting out so much good artistic content, while Image was putting out the blockbuster Big Bang kind of things. And there, it's really a matter of taste. But I always felt like that Vertigo era, that early Vertigo era, was such a golden era age for so many good things. I mean, with Shade the Changing Man and Animal Man, and oh man, so many good things happening at that moment.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I just picked up a book that's kind of about that. It's a book out right now called Comic Book Punks, and it's about all the Brits who came over and did all that stuff. Neil Gaiman and Peter Milligan and Garth Ennis and
cool. To check that out.
Yeah, so
I reread that stuff all the time.
Yeah,
I just finished a reread of The Invisibles. It's just that whole era is just so bonkers.
Yeah,
how much pure talent is on the page in every issue,
and just being allowed to do what they wanted to do. Just you know, I mean, they let Alan Moore come in and take one of the main characters of DC and just completely reinvent him. And,
right? It's wild.
Yeah, it was a good moment for comic book fans to convince people of the art form of it, and
right. Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
And one of our friend Alex Segura gave us a great pull quote for the Pedestrian before it came out, and he mentioned it was evocative of 90s era Vertigo, and I just like melted.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh my God, that's like one of the kindest things I can imagine.
Yeah, right. That's such a high compliment.
Are you still collecting now? You both still collect?
I honestly, this surprises a lot of people, but I usually, because of all the projects I'm working on a given basis, I'm usually working on at least 2 or 3 books or doing shows. I get very little time to read or get any comics. Usually, I'm reading something. It's something like a friend will send me of what they're working on, or something I'll really have to go and pick up.
Right.
I think the last 2 comics I picked up recently were, I got them right here. I'm very excited. Obviously, had to pick up a volume of Astonishing X-Men.
John Cassaday.
John Cassaday. He was a very big supporter of Pedestrian. I met him at Baltimore Comic-Con a couple of years ago, and had been a fan of him for years. Had always been like too nervous to approach him, and we were like at BarCon with my new wife, my fiance at the time, at that weird bar they were doing it at that year. Had a bunch of these tall like sports lounge tables, and he sort of like I'm at the table with my wife. And he kind of backs up and like kind of slides into one of the chairs on here in this crowded spot, and then kind of turns around and sees like I'm looking right at him. He's like, "Oh, is this cool?" I'm like, "This is beyond cool, John Cassaday. You can sit because my name is Sean and I love you." So we started talking. I wouldn't say we were friends, but there was a real strong connection in that moment. And then that next day, I found him at his table and had like an ash can of Pedestrian, which is like the first 6 pages of the first issue, and it's something we had to cut from this initial run. But there is a splash page, like a full splash page of like him walking in 3 beats, like swish, swish, swish. And he like really just sat down. There was a line. He was like, don't worry, I'll get to those guys. And he's reading this, and like he like leans back and puts his hands on the table and looks up at me and goes, "Wow, this is bold.
Nice.
This is great." And he flips through to see like the cover gallery, and he sees who's on the cover gallery. It's Dean Haspiel and Mike Allred, and he goes, "Oh, you got these jerks? You didn't ask me?" And I said, "Well, we just met last night, motherfucker." That's like, yeah, I would love to, but we never made that connection. I know he had been sick for a long time, and really affected me when hearing he had passed.
Yeah.
Because again, another one of those guys that I was like, "Oh, I got to do this. This is really cool. I need to do something close to this." And I had bought a copy of Rapidograph. Because I had read that like these were the pens that he uses.
Oh yeah.
But then thinking, oh yeah, this will make me draw like him, and that was not the case. I'm more of a pen guy.
Yeah.
I'm more of a brush pen guy,
Yeah.
as I learned. But I also picked up the Death of Comics bookcase, Volume 1. At Baltimore Comic-Con, which I was really excited about, and also nervous because they have this incredible character called the Responsibility Team, which is sort of like a Ditko-esque story about a teenage superhero inspired by the old Clippy fella who would pop up on your old docs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And of all of the projects that have come out and have been announced and been in development since we've been making Pedestrian, this is the one that kind of scared me a little bit, because I thought, oh no, this is something that is equally as weird, if not more weird than the I'm terribly afraid that this would be the thing that sinks our boat. And I met Zach, the writer there, and I told him exactly what I just told you now. Because I'm so happy to hear you say that. I'm going to text Nick, the artist, and let him know that Showman Gorman is threatened by you. Like, you tell him to watch his back.
When you bring up John Cassaday, the first thing I think of is Planetary. I
yeah.
absolutely loved his work on Planetary, because I am a sucker. If you bring up old sci-fi for me, that old golden age of sci-fi and the pulps and all that, I am just in all the way. And
Yeah, I dug out my Absolute Planetary editions, and
I have
They're-
a huge. I got the big collection recently. It's great.
So I've been doing a reread of that also. And as far as collecting goes, I would say I am a collector, mostly actively of toys. You see my wrestling figures behind me, but in front of me is just a bunch of like Star Wars and Turtles and DC and lots of Superman and whatever. A lot of it is from. Sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
I think we have a clip. Let's roll. And we're back.
A lot of this stuff is from childhood. Obviously, I still buy cool toys that I see and like, but I have a storage unit in my hometown which has all my long boxes and stuff. But in terms of comics, I go to the comic shop every week, but I'm very much I don't. At this point, I don't. I just throw them into a box, and then at some point, I'll give them to someone or trade them at the shop for something else. I just don't. I don't have the capacity to bag and board everything anymore.
Yeah.
But I have some great bookshelves and toys everywhere. I love stuff.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love having stuff. Yeah, I mean, I can. That's like that looks like heaven back there.
That's my base. This is we're in my basement, and it's ceiling to floor, wall to wall.
When we're finished,
So
we should show.
I've had a whole I've had a whole dilemma with myself for years until very recently about I used to never open any of my toys because I just, I like the way they look in cardboard and just like, I don't know, it looks way cooler to me.
Me too.
And so I had a long struggle with, I've had these toys that I've moved across the country 4 or 5 times. And every time I've like moved them with me, and they just stay in plastic crates, and I can't display them anywhere because they're so bulky and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And then last year I got laid off from my day job, and all of a sudden I was like, fuck it, I'm going to open these toys. And that's sort of how I ended up with a bunch of toys all around the office, because I did one, and then I was like, oh, I feel lighter and free. And in addition to not working at this job that I hated, I can also just like, I can open these toys and enjoy them. And so that's where I'm at these days.
That's awesome. I can do whatever I want.
I'm an adult now. I can do what I want. I can't.
Yesterday I bought. I was buying something in Target. I was actually buying detergent in Target, and Target had the Toonie Terrors Vincent Price action figure, and I absolutely love Vincent. I love Vincent Price. For anybody, any younger people out there, please look up Vincent Price. You owe it to yourself. And he's in black and white in the figure.
Oh, that's cool.
The package is this beautiful sort of silver foil text and all that. I'm like, oh, am I going to open this? I don't know. It's such a nice package.
No way.
But I have nowhere to put it. I just don't have anywhere to put it. Yeah.
I love those Toonie Terrors. I have the Shining Twins and Michael Myers and Beetlejuice. They're real. Especially, I just did a bunch of decorating for Halloween, so those come out, and we hide them around the house. It's
nice.
a lot of fun.
So just a quick side note, just your wrestling love.
Sorry, Sean.
And sorry, Brian, but
Sean, you don't know about wrestling?
Probably as much as the next guy from like 99 to 2003.
Yeah, see, I'm even earlier. I'm like
more than Brian.
Yeah, I'm like 80 to like 86. Yeah, like
we did do a wrestling podcast that a friend of ours hosts to promote the Pedestrian, and we talked about our assignment was to watch the I said WrestleMania 7 Slaughter and Hulk Hogan main event.
I remember that.
And he had to research that and watch that match. And 3 minutes in, I had to pause it and then research the build up to that match. Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan at the height of his power, of being the American hero, height of the just before the Gulf War, pretty much like around that time. Sergeant Slaughter does an epic heel turn where he is a sympathizer for Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
But it's insane.
What? Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
He wears the head stuff, and he wears the white robe, and he comes out with who was the
wasn't Iron Sheik.
No, it wasn't. It was
Admiral Mustafa
Akbar, right? Admiral Akbar was with him.
Admiral Akbar?
Yeah.
Like Star Wars?
No.
So
wrestling is wild.
At the height of this, people are like foaming at the mouth of like, you American traitor. In comes Hulk Hogan, and a pretty solid match for Hulk Hogan. They're both, really wasn't that invested in wrestling, and I watched it, but never really appreciated the work of Sergeant Slaughter. Like he is a pro, and this is a solid match. And even Hulk Hogan, who at the height of his fame doesn't really need to be working very hard, is also working very hard. Even tries a top rope move, which he had never done. So yeah, glorious match. And then we also went on to talk about the other crazy things about that show. Regis Philbin is one of the guest ring announcers during this match. So Regis Philbin is popping in, and they went for a what was the line where one's inviting them out to a party, and he's like, "I'm busy that day."
I think it was was it Ventura who's like, oh no, it was Bobby Heenan. I think is just like on fire, and just it was a lot of fun. But yes, I wrestling is.
I remember it now. Bobby is inviting Regis out to like a party he's throwing. He goes, "Oh no, I can't make it, but maybe Kathy Lee and her husband can come." And he goes, "We're full."
Good stuff.
Brian hates when I do this. So who's your favorite
of all time? Probably Shawn Michaels, but also Stone Cold is up there. But Shawn Michaels is, anytime I rewatch an old match, particularly, pre-retirement, pre-first retirement, I should say, it's just unreal, man. He moves so quickly and is just so impressive. And often my wife and I will make a joke, like if we have something urgent we need to do in the morning, we call it, we're going to Shawn Michaels out of bed, and we're going to just like get this shit done. So, I love him. And especially, for someone who went through, his story could have been a very familiar one.
Yes.
I think that he was able to turn it around however he was able to do it in a way that feels, to me as a fan, I don't know him obviously, but like to me as a fan, it feels genuine in his regret over some things that he was doing at the time. And now to see him kind of like helping the next generation and running NXT and all that stuff, it's just, I love people in the wrestling business who clearly, because wrestling to me is very similar to comics in many ways, but also like the tight-knit community and like the respect that you get for someone who's like grinding it out for so long and finds success, but then also who sticks around to help the next generation. Right. And, he never seemed interested in being a movie star or anything like that, like many of his contemporaries. And not to begrudge anyone who goes that route, but the fact that he's so committed to sharing his skill and knowledge with the younger talent and is working so hard to make that happen, I think has only elevated him for me. So yeah, he's awesome.
Maybe he'll
and right now of like current, I'm a huge CM Punk fan for similar reasons. Like I think he can rub people the wrong way. Obviously, there's a lot of like fun backstage drama to follow, which is part of the fun if you're a wrestling fan. But also, like he doesn't seem to compromise or bend his ethics or anything like that. And I would say, in terms of my approach to being a creator or just a person in the world, I think to my detriment, I will always stand by like what I think is right. And I try to emulate sort of what Punk projects in that capacity, just like my career or livelihood or fame is, I'm not saying that I want to be famous, but when you're on CM Punk's level, it could be easy to like cut, pull your punches a little bit, and he just doesn't do that. and sometimes it hurts him with fans or with co-workers, and I think there's something to admire about that.
Now, have you ever thought about bringing that into a story and doing some type of wrestling connected?
I did actually. I have a. If anyone's listening, me and the artist Ryan Cody a few years ago did a book called Atomic Drop. That I'll send you the pitch. I love it. It's like
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
It's a post-apocalyptic adventure, but it's like the only thing that people remember about the old world is professional wrestling.
Okay.
So it's like they've sort of become like everything in the world revolves around, like they live in the town of Turnbuckle and, you know, things like that. Like everything revolves around wrestling.
That's great.
And it hasn't got made?
No, we did a pitch, and Ryan has a bunch of cool covers and character designs. We have the first 6 pages, and you know,
Are you still pitching it?
we haven't, and we've kind of exhausted our options at this point.
We have a friend of ours who runs a comic book company called Legacy Comics. His name is Patrick Kickie. He's a local guy here. You know Patrick?
I go way back with Patrick.
Patrick's a great guy, and he's a huge wrestling fan.
All right, I'll send it your way.
He's gonna say, no, Patrick. That sounds right up Patrick's.
I think Patrick is doing. He's doing a comic show right now.
We were there yesterday.
Yeah, we just went.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, we were there yesterday. It was he is by far the hardest working man in comic books I have.
It's very true. Patrick was technically my first editor for comic strips. I did a comic strip for the school paper at Kingsborough. The editor of the school paper that was called Sakatumi Comics.
Nice.
And the first ever editor I ever gave the business to, because he fucked up one of my strips, like of the formatting, because the strip wasn't the same size as that page, and so he sort of stretched it out, and I was like, 19, 20, my powers as a angsty kid, like burned into his office. What the fuck is this? Like, don't ever fucking do this to my strip again. He's like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
And nothing has changed.
I mean, fair. I get hot sometimes.
So why are you at the convention then? Why didn't you?
Well, we're also celebrating my son's turning 16 today.
Very nice.
Oh wow! Nice. Congrats.
We're doing the rest of the day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully next one you could be at. But I know you guys have a hard stop. So the last couple of things is there anything you want to promote that you have coming up besides the Pedestrian? We're loving it. 6 issues, right, of the Pedestrian? We
are greenlit for 4 issues right now.
Okay.
But if the response and the sales are where they need to be, we've had conversations with Magma where we could potentially have this be an ongoing series where we just keep going like 5, 6, 7, 8, because we're just getting started in this world. We've been brewing this for 5 years now. It's a very rich story where it's a deceptively simple story, but if you think about it, we're really kind of writing a Superman book, like a Triangle Superman era book, where Superman doesn't have powers.
Right.
As you strip away all the trappings of Superman, what do you have left? You have someone who is just trying to do the right thing all the time, and that's what Superman's about. And that's what a lot of with the exception of Superman and Lois and the Arrowverse, I think a lot of the big media depictions of Superman have kind of been missing that mark. That's the core of it. And the criticism is he's boring. He's a Boy Scout, but no, he's just trying to help out in the best way he can. Yeah. So, if people who are talking about this and keep talking about this, tell your friends about this. If you see something you like of what we're posting in our social media, share it with your friends. You like the toy trailer, share it with your friends. Don't shut up about this book. And we're very happy to keep this going as long as possible. Because if we get to the finish line of where we want to go, this is going to be the weirdest, wildest payoff we've seen in a comic in a generation.
Looking forward to it.
Can't wait.
Who's going to play him in the movie?
We definitely have fan castings, but conversations are happening already. A copy of the book is already at a well-known streamer. So fingers crossed.
Nice.
Keep that word of mouth going. Let's get these numbers up so you can arm us with the raw data we need to show these companies. Be like, listen, people need this. Everyone is asking for this. People are desperate to see this fellow just walking in real time.
Joe, you have anything you're working on besides Pedestrian?
Yeah, so the Pedestrian 3 comes out October 16th. Sean and I will be at New York Comic Con that week if you want to swing by and
I'll be
say
there.
hello.
I'll come by.
And excuse me.
Have some merch.
We'll
I'll
have
be
some
there.
merch. The issue 4 is currently still up for pre-orders. So put it on your pull list, and then the trade will come out in January. But other than that, I also wrote some Sesame Street comics for Oni Press. I wrote issue 1, which came out in August, and issue 4 will be out. I believe it actually comes out the same day as Pedestrian 4, so it's going to be a big day for me. And then I'll have some other DC stuff, maybe getting announced soonish.
Cool.
And other than that, yeah, just kind of plugging away and working on issue 5 of the Pedestrian, and just starting to build what's next, and hopefully we get to keep at it.
So do you have your table number at New York Comic Con where people can find you yet?
Yes, we're going to be at I-4.
Great.
I will be there. I will definitely stop by. Hopefully you have that Mike Allred and the action figure cover that I could pick up.
Awesome. I meant to mention earlier, also Magma is selling like a really nice lithograph of the Allred cover.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Oh, I'm going to look for that.
Available on our website.
Good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'll be there the least crowded day. I'll be there Saturday.
Good choice. Good choice.
Now, do you have anything else coming up besides New York Comic Con? Is there anywhere else where people could catch you?
We are talking about maybe putting together like a small tour for shops we could hit on this first run for the trade paperback. The trade paperback is in previews now. It's going to be in shops in January. So maybe post holidays. We'll take a little time. And also have some work coming out in the writer coming out through Dark Horse Comics. The Berkowitz brothers had reached out to me to do a couple of pieces for the trade paperback. So there's going to be I've got a couple of pinups in there, and one of them is a canon team up of their character Stan the writer with the Pedestrian.
Cool.
So it's going to be out through Dark Horse Comics, I think, in March.
Cool. Really cool.
Stan the Writer, that was Josh Gad's comic, right?
Yes, he's one of the writers on that. That's been doing pretty well with Dark Horse Comics, and it's also the Berkowitz brothers' first foray into comics, and we're having conversations about what's next for them. And they sent me a really weird idea that I can't talk about, but Joey knows about it because I had to tell somebody. Because I was trying to get Joey in on it, but it was if you like the Pedestrian, you're definitely, if this sees the light of day, it's going to be something like you're going to look at it and go, oh, this is so stupid, and then you pick it up and like, oh, this is actually really fun. Which is something hearing a lot about the Pedestrian. Like someone sees it on the shelf, they go, "What is this? This is so dumb." I saw a 9-year-old boy at Forbidden Planet. He was like looking. It was like after the main release, so it goes down a couple rows, so he's eye level with it, and he's just like staring at it, like going, "Dad, I don't know what this is. Dad, come over here. Dad, what is the Pedestrian? I can't. This is so weird." He picks it up and he reads the whole thing, and I see this, and I lean over to the dad and I go, "Oh, that's a good one." He goes, "Oh yeah," and I go, "Yeah, that's my book. Like I'm Sean Gorman. I made this book." And he didn't know what to do with that information. He broke his brain a little bit. He was like, "What? And you're here? How are you here?" It always has to be, word of mouth has to be someone else doing the word of mouth for you. You can't be your own word of mouth.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
That you would be there in that moment. Like I was standing when Pedestrian 1 came out. I spent like an hour just standing next to the book at Midtown Comics, just waiting to get recognized, because they don't let you sign the books if you're not a huge creator. So I just kind of stood there. There's pictures on my Instagram of me just kind of like holding it like next to the book for a while. So it's trying to spark a conversation. And then on the way out, I'm buying a copy. And like, oh yeah, this is cool. And they had the all-red variant. I was like, oh, this is my book. And the guy was like, oh, I'll pick it up after my shift.
No, you won't.
No.
My favorite, like, if we see comments online or League of Comic Geeks or whatever, there's so many that are just like, A, their expectations were low, which is fair, and B, this book shouldn't be as good as it is a refrain that we see a lot, which I think is the compliment, but also, I don't know, we worked pretty hard. I hope it's pretty good.
We're going to title it, This Shouldn't Be As Good As It Is. So
Yeah, I mean, that's, I'll take it. That's fine.
We had
People are reading it and talking about it. That's more than I could have ever asked for.
our favorite, like, not into it, this response was at Baltimore last weekend, where there was this big dude who was there for something else I was working on and was signing that and is buying that. I'm trying to like upsell. Have you seen our book, the Pedestrian? And I didn't realize Joey had already done the hard sell when I stepped away. So he goes, yeah, no, no. It's getting good word of mouth. It's like, yeah, that's not my jam. Fair enough.
No further explanation needed.
That's perfect.
The night he went.
So when the next project comes out, we'd love to have you back on to talk about that. We expect invites to the movie premiere when it comes out. So don't forget us.
I mean, us too, hopefully.
We'll sit in the back row with you when the
Only black tie though, so heads up, fellas.
we clean up nice, the two of us. We
No Star Wars branding on the attire.
Oh no.
all right. That might be harder though. But
Wild assumption, but I'm assuming you've got something in your closet matching that description.
Oh yeah,
100%. Probably 4 ties that I could pull out right now and wear that.
Yeah, we are
the movie.
We are occasionally functional adults.
Yeah, we're actually school teachers, so we shape them up.
Oh, that's cool.
Future, so.
Awesome.
And our students watch this now. They found us within the last month, which has been really uncomfortable in school. That they're like, hey, and they're buying. We have some merchandise, and they buy our merchandise, and they wear our shirts to school. It's like really weird. Like,
I apologize that we dropped some.
No. We're
It's fine.
We're
Don't
okay
worry about
with
that.
that.
No,
We're
don't
fine
worry.
with that. But
That's cooler.
They hear worse in school.
they say worse.
Can you imagine what they watch online?
Yeah, us apparently. We don't know why. We're not that cool.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, guys. I really appreciate it, guys. Joe Esposito, Sean Gorman, go out and get the Pedestrian. Go out and get Ghost Planet. Go out and get everything with their name on it, please.
Thanks for having us.
Get them at New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
We'll be there. Say hello.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Pedestrian, justice always has the right way.